Welcome, NFL football fans. It's that time again. Time for another edition of NFL Football Talk. This is an Inside Sports production. I'm your host, Charles E. Smith, Jr., and this is our big Week 3 preview show for the 2015 NFL season. And remember, I don't work alone. I do only entrust the best to help me break down these games and analyze the wonderful drama that is NFL football. So before we begin, let me go ahead and introduce my co-host, none other than the man many of you already follow on Twitter at Chris L. Sports. He is hanging out at his undisclosed location somewhere in Southern California. None other than Chris Lardieri. Chris, what's happening out there, man?
Charles, great to be with you. Thank you for inviting me back after another atrocious week of picks from yours truly. I'm glad to just still be in this contest.
Well, you know, your picks may have been bad last week, but mine were even, I think they say, worser than yours were. But hopefully we rebound, and that's the whole thing about it. And that's why, like someone says on one of those networks, that's why they play the game. Or, you know, any given Sunday. All kinds of cliches as to why I was 1-4 last week and you were 2-3 last week, even though both of us have been watching football religiously for about 40 years or so.
Absolutely, and you know, it just goes to show you, for instance, I was in one of those survivor pools. I made the mistake of picking the Saints. I was on the fence. I was thinking of picking the Ravens, and I didn't, so I would have gone out either way. But I found out Monday evening that the survivor pool's over, and in all my years following football and playing in or hearing about these pools, I've never heard of one being done in week 2, so that just goes to show you how crazy it's been.
Yeah, nobody knows. And all the injuries we had last week, we had 4 quarterbacks now that are, 2 are out for sure. That's Romo and Jay Cutler are done for sure because Romo's got that broken collarbone. Cutler gone for at least 2 weeks with a hamstring. And then Matt Stafford, very sore from what I understand. And then Drew Brees, of course. So, and you know, how does that affect everything? And you know who must be going crazy is Vegas trying to set the line for all these games. And also even the Eagles, who haven't done anything, but now they've got their linebacker, Kiko Alonso, the same knee that he missed all of 2014 with. He's re-injured that. He's going to miss next week, and we don't know how long he's going to be out. So a lot of turmoil on a lot of teams. A lot of teams that are 2-0 that should have been 0-2, and a lot of 0-2s that should have been 2-0, and a lot of coulda, woulda, shoulda. And all adds up to plenty of drama and every reason in the world to keep watching.
Yes, and more reason not to gamble on the NFL.
Right. Just sit back and enjoy the drama, but don't bet on the games. And
fantasy football is not gambling, by the way.
Right, it's not. It is. It's something, but it's not gambling. I don't know. You put money in and you get money back, possibly, based on what happens during games, but it's not gambling, right? Isn't that what happens?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Got it. So before we'll talk about a little bit about the games we picked last week. There was Denver and Kansas City. We both picked KC, but thanks to Jamal Charles and a late fumble, and as Mr. Lardieri knows, the curious play calling of one Big Red, Mr. Andy Reid out there.
I don't even know what to say. I guess it makes me feel good to be a Giants fan because Andy Reid just clearly has issues when he gets in the red zone, overthinking, and then late in the game, instead of taking a knee, runs Jamal Charles. Hey, Andy, Greg Schiano's not in the league anymore. You don't have to worry about the running the clock out of the victory formation. Just take a knee next time. Just completely baffling. A game the Chiefs really could have won, and they just gave away.
So is that their Pisarcik to Zonka, do you think? Is that the way that's going to be remembered in Chiefs lore?
It could very well be, especially if they have a bad season. I mean, that play basically defined the turning point of a franchise, which was going down the tubes at the time. But it could be. I mean, every team seems to have one of those moments, and it very well could be because that was clearly a winnable game, even going into overtime. The Chiefs have been moving the ball well, so really frustrating. Makes you not want to pick the Chiefs anymore.
All right, and then the other game, New England at Buffalo, I kind of took a flyer on Buffalo, and, they came back, made it a little interesting there at the end, but In the end, New England takes care of business. Dallas at Philadelphia, we thought Philadelphia would take that game because they had to get back on track. And Murray, after running 8 carries for 9 yards, he had to get better because the running game is a staple. And here you had Dallas without their big threat, no Dez Bryant. And Tony Romo even got injured in that game. And, Brandon Whedon comes in and leads a touchdown drive for the Cowboys. So, bad on offense, soft on defense. The Eagles in maybe approaching complete disarray. And Sam Bradford, who held off on signing a new contract because he's going to prove what he can do and get more money. Looks like that's kind of backfiring on him, too.
Yeah, and the thing is, they go up to the Meadowlands to play a 2-0 New York Jets team this week, and it can only get uglier because, if you ask me, I think the Jets are going to be the toughest defense they've played so far this year. So, really going to get interesting in Philly. I mean, I know the Pope's there. He may have to say an extra prayer for the Eagles and Chip Kelly.
Yeah, I think so. And then Seattle and Green Bay. You had correctly picked Green Bay. Seattle still just having trouble getting going, but they got Cam Chancellor back now, who should be available for the next game. But that was a good pick by you there, Mr. Lardieri, going with the Packers at Lambeau Field. I should have known better.
Thank you. Well, the Seahawks have a history of playing the Packers tough, and if they could actually find a target or the whereabouts of Jimmy Graham, they may have pulled that game out. Right,
and that's what I was waiting for, too. Just like I thought the Eagles' run game would break out, I thought, okay, Jimmy Graham is going to have that breakout week now and be that dynamic force in the Seahawks offense that he was signed to be. But so far, Mr. Graham is still MIA.
Yeah, he may be on the back of a milk carton. I think we remember that graphic, right, Charles?
So I do, yes. And then San Diego at Cincinnati, and, I had talked about regular season Andy Dalton, and actually regular season Andy Dalton saved me because I would have had an 0-5 week had it not been for Andy coming through there. So thank you, Mr. Dalton, and I have to abandon you in the playoffs, but regular season I'm going to go ahead and ride with the big redhead there.
As long as he pays dividends for you at some point, right, Charles? Because we know not to count on him when the calendar changes to January.
Yeah, well, I think when you look at the Bengals and their history and their fans, I think they are happy just having a playoff team every year. So he will deliver that. On a consistent basis. They'll make the playoffs, and then it's a matter of you, I don't know, rubbing, putting on your lucky hat or your lucky wristband or doing whatever you do, or rolling dice or using voodoo dolls or whatever, and hope that the Bengals can somehow get a win. But he will get you to the playoffs.
Yeah, and he's the first one to do that in successive years. It's the lefty Boomer Esiason. So I think the Bengals fans will appreciate him. Now, if this were Philadelphia, they'd probably want to run him out of town, or maybe New York or Boston. So he's probably in the right location.
Yep, there we go. Okay, so before we start this week's pick segment, you got any nuggets of wisdom for us?
I have no nuggets for you on how to pick a football game, but hopefully I can turn that around starting this week. I was impressed with the way Derek Carr played, leading a comeback against the Ravens.
Yeah.
Impressed with the Steelers waking up against the 49ers. I think we all know that was an aberration, what they did against the Vikings. And speaking of which, I guess we don't have to run Adrian Peterson out to pasture. North Turner got the memo. They ran him a lot. He's starting to look like the AP of old. So it'll be interesting to follow what the Vikings do up there. Everyone's sleeper pick this season.
Yep. Absolutely, and I'm ready to say AP is back. Not for the 3 fumbles he had. Well, 2 official, but 1 was called back because of a penalty. But just got to work on the ball security there. But, clearly he's back, and there's those little things. But, like I said, last week's show, take 3-4 weeks or so until he really gets back into form. But he's not far off it now, and I think he could very well have a breakout weekend this week in one of the games that we're going to pick.
Absolutely, let's do it.
All right, let's get down to it. So, very first game, the Buffalo Bills kind of hitting on all 8 cylinders, ran into a little bit of a wall there with New England last week, but the Buffalo Bills now in Miami to play the helter-skelter Miami Dolphins, where the Dolphins' defense hasn't dominated like we thought it would with Ndamukong Suh there, but things, and from what I understand, he might have a little bit of difficulty with their defensive coordinator, so the Dolphins still in a little disarray. Ryan Tannehill, the quarterback, not being consistent, although he shows those flashes of brilliance. I'll let you go ahead and pick this one here, Mr. Lardieri. What do you think? Buffalo Bills at Miami, big division rival.
Well, I'm going to make you happy, Charles. I'm going to pick your beloved Dolphins for a couple of reasons. I think while the offense hasn't gotten off the ground, I think they might be able to do it this week. They can take the game plan from Mr. Belichick and Mr. Brady and the rest of the alleged deflators and see that the Bills' defense isn't invincible. You can be torched. Now, Ryan Tannehill is going to have to step it up in order to do that. And I do think the Dolphins' defense will play well, and they've got a really... There's a player on the other side of the ball that would cause me to be optimistic if I was a Dolphins defensive player, and his name is Tyrod Taylor. I know he's mobile. He's really good at running the ball. He makes the throws he needs to, the proverbial term game manager, but I was unimpressed with what he did against the Patriots, and I think he's in for an uphill battle against that Miami D, so Dolphins it is.
All right. Well, you know what? This is going to sound strange, but I'm actually going to disagree here. I got to look at how the teams are playing, which team has been more consistent, and also looking at the opponents they've had. The Bills losing to New England, that's one thing, but the Dolphins losing to Jacksonville is a little bit puzzling. So looking at how they've played so far this season, I think the Bills have been the better team overall. So I got to go with Buffalo here, begrudgingly. The Buffalo Bills. Hey, it is what it is, people.
Yeah, and if you're wrong and the Bills end up losing, do you think Rex will apologize to you and accept full responsibility and say how we'll stop talking so much? What do you think?
Yeah, hopefully so. So let's go ahead and move on to the next game here, which is the Indianapolis Colts, another team trying to get things going somehow. Andrew Luck looked really horrible last week. They have no running game. It's just kind of disarray. Now there's questions of whether or not Chuck Pagano there's a rift between he and the front office. They're in Tennessee with Marcus Mariota, who had a rough week last week too, falling to 1-1 after his perfect week. It's hard to see. This is a tough game here just because of the inexperience with the Tennessee Titans, but playing at home and looking at the way that Luck has played, I think, Wisenhunt coaching, Wisenhunt's a good coach there. I think Tennessee is going to get this game. They're going to send the Colts down to 0-3, and there is going to be a lot of turmoil there in Indianapolis. I got Tennessee in this game.
Well, as much as I'd like to agree with you, and I'm a Marcus Mariota fan, I'm picking the Colts. I really don't think it can get any worse. I think it's good that they're playing a team like the Titans. Not impressed with their defense. Charles, ultimately what it comes down to me is I like Andrew Luck. I think he had an off week against an excellent defense, and he'll bounce back. But at the end of the day, when Johnny Manziel is beating your defense, you got to be licking your chops, Andrew Luck. So I'm going with the Colts. I think they rebound, and everyone in Indianapolis can pump their brakes, and the Colts get back on track.
Okay, we'll see. And very curiously, we're not picking the Browns game this week, but Manziel, despite getting the win last week, Josh McCown is healthy. He's going to be back in this week. Manziel is going back to the bench. But next game, San Diego Chargers lost in Cincinnati last week against Minnesota. Vikings got their first win of the season. Adrian Peterson getting back on track. And Chargers with a good high-powered offense when they can get that cranked up. How do you see this one working out?
I'm on the Chargers bandwagon. I think they could be a sleeper team to at least win the AFC West this year. That said, I like the way the Vikings turn things around. They're going to be at home. Norv Turner, I'm sure, will have a good scheme to beat his former team. And kind of an intangible little nugget in here, which is causing me to lean towards Minnesota. I don't like when Chargers travel east of the Mississippi. I don't know what it is, and I don't know the number, but they just don't seem to have a winning record when that happens. And going up to the great north of Minneapolis, St. Paul area, I'm going with the Vikings. I also think there's some holes in the Chargers defense, and I'm skeptical as to whether Melvin Gordon can really get the ball running on their side of the ball.
And I'm going to go with you all the way. And they were my dark horse pick to make a deep playoff run this year. And I think the way that they played last week, that showed something, a night and day from week one. So I think they're getting just getting cranked up. Teddy Bridgewater is getting comfortable with Adrian Peterson and his receivers, I think you're going to see the offense finally take that next step that I thought they were going to take when the season started. So look for kind of a win, and I'm looking at a breakout win here for the Minnesota Vikings to really kind of establish themselves as a shall we call it, a force to be reckoned with in the NFC this year.
About time we agree, Charles.
All right, and then the Cincinnati Bengals. Big game in Baltimore. The desperate 0-2 Ravens, and then we got the Bengals going in there with a chance to put a dagger in the Ravens to send them to 0-3, which would mean, obviously, we can all do simple arithmetic, but if you're 0-3, that would mean just to get to 10-6, which is pretty much the cutoff to make the playoffs, they'd have to go 10-3 the rest of the way. So a desperate Ravens team, but still a Ravens team without Terrell Suggs in the middle, who is more than just the talent, but the emotional leader of that defense. Like I said, hey, I like regular season Andy Dalton, and I think the Bengals are going to go in there and take care of business, even though they've had trouble in Baltimore historically. But I think it'll be different. I got to ride the hot hand. I'm going with the big redhead again this week.
Well, it's about time we're going to disagree again and get back on track. I'm going to go with the Ravens. I think their offense looked good last week against the Raiders, and unfortunately their defense is fairly atrocious in the second half. I think coming back home, I think will be an emotional boost for them. I think the defense gets back on track. Yes, they missed Suggs, but I do think they're going to rally. They're going to have to rally, circle the wagons, whatever figure of speech you want to use that you'll hear on all the sports networks and so forth. But look, getting back to my little nugget that causes me to pick this is the Bengals always seem to have problems in Baltimore, so what the heck, I'll go with the Trent Ravens.
All right. You must really believe in that trouble when you're going to pick a team that just lost to the Raiders last week. But anyways, let's go ahead and move on to the last game.
Hey, a broken clock is right twice a day.
I would never say that your clock is broken, homie.
Okay. I was just using a metaphor. Yes, my clocks are always on time, even when we turn the clocks back.
Okay, so last game we're going to pick the Chiefs at Green Bay to play the to play the Packers. The Chiefs, the heartbreaking loss against the Broncos last week. This is a big game. This is one of those things where you're going to kind of define how you are. You get to measure yourself against one of the better teams in the league. So Andy Reid and the Chiefs in Green Bay to take on the Packers. How do you see this one?
I'm going Packers, even before Andy Reid's clueless calling into that game last Thursday. Aaron Rodgers is unbelievable in Lambeau. The guy just doesn't throw interceptions. You look at James Jones, who apparently the Giants thought Preston Parker was a better receiver than him, and they cut him. Goes to Green Bay, and he's catching touchdowns left and right. So, yeah, do they miss Jordy Nelson? I guess. I mean, if Adams stays hurt and Cobb can't get things going, they might. But it doesn't matter. Aaron Rodgers always seems to find someone to throw the ball to. He makes everyone around him better. And at the end of the day, I'll take him over Alex Smith. And on Monday Night Football, I think they'll be fired up. The good news for the Packers, they won't have to listen to John Gruden calling the game. And I think that inspires them for victory. What do you say?
Yep. I think so. I got to go with you on this one, the Packers. And the reason why this game, I kind of felt that we would both probably pick the Packers in this game, but when I looked around at all the other games and you look at all the injuries, there were other games I was thinking about putting on the docket here, but I was like, okay, let's take this. No, wait, the quarterback's injured. Let's take this game. Oh, no, wait, he's out. Oh, no, let's take this game. No, he's injured. So the only other thing I thought about putting the Giants and the Redskins on here, but that's a coin flip, and we both know it. So no reason to even try to call that one. But I'm going to go with Green Bay in this game too, for all the reasons you said. And I love Aaron Rodgers. Just they talk about elite quarterbacks and who's this and who's that and who's the. Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in the NFL. Period. After that, it's about picking and choosing what kind of elements you like about your quarterbacks. But Aaron Rodgers is the best, flat out. There's not even arguably the best. He is the best quarterback in the league right now, all due respect to Tom Brady, of course.
Completely agree, and I know, like you said, Brady's got a lot of Super Bowl rings, but I think right now, especially with Gronk, he's got more weapons than Rodgers has.
Yeah.
Or Rodgers still manages to do. Rodgers is one of those guys that makes everyone around him better, and he's not afraid to take chances, but he doesn't turn the ball over, and that's what a lot of people are worried about with Andrew Luck, a lot of these turnovers. So I agree with you. I don't even think it's a contest.
Yep, there we go. All right, so that's the pick segment for this week, and remember to join us every week right here, the show NFL Football Talk, which is an Inside Sports production. And before we sign off, got anything else for us, Mr. Lardieri?
Yeah, I just hope at this point the injuries stop. And what's interesting is, for once, we're not talking about concussions and head injuries. So I guess in that respect, the NFL's done their job with changing the rules and so forth. But can't even blame it on the turf like you used to with the knee injuries.
Right.
I mean, Romo's breaking his collarbone, rotator cuff with Breeze. Quarterbacks are still getting hurt. They're still getting hit. May not be the hit, but this is just further proof, as you and I have been beating the drum. You cannot have an 18-game season, and I think the wins are agreeing with us in this in the NFL, because I've read a number of things where owners are saying the 18-game season's not even on the table anymore, and that's a perfect example of why.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. That's ridiculous. And what I don't like, and we've talked about this at length here, but the whole thing of how many millions and billions do you need to bring in before you just kind of say we're good? I mean, trying to stretch it to 18 games would be ridiculous. Even if they eliminate a couple of preseason games, that's fine. Then just go 2 preseason games and start the regular season. Don't turn those other 2 preseason games into regular season games, which is, I think, kind of the harebrained scheme they were trying to sort of get people to warm up to.
Yeah, completely agree. It's penny wise and pound foolish, but thankfully I don't think we have to worry about that, but you never know with Roger Goodell, do you?
Yeah, that's true. And, next week we'll talk about, where is Roger? I have not seen him anywhere. Where Roger at, as they would say in the hood?
He might be wherever Jimmy Graham is. It's a good question. We should probably be on the lookout for him. But, yeah, he's really laid low. All
right, everybody. So that's about it. So for Mr. Chris Lardieri, I'm Charles E. Smith, Jr., and thank you for watching NFL Football Talks, an Inside Sports production, and we'll see everybody next week.